My mom handed me an official letter of disownment after I refused to attend my sister's wedding after she stole my fiancé 2 weeks before our wedding. She sneered, "It's the past, so woman up, and if you can't get over it, you're not our daughter anymore." My father added, "She's always been the better daughter anyways. Goodbye." I just smiled and said, "Thank you for making this decision easy." That was 3 weeks ago. This morning, I woke up to desperate banging on my front door, and 147 frantic messages from them, begging me to stop what I had just started. So here's the thing about revenge: it tastes better when it's served ice cold and wrapped in legal documents. 3 weeks ago, my parents handed me a disownment letter like it was a birthday card. Can you believe that? An actual piece of paper, signed and witnessed, telling me I was no longer their daughter because I refused to play bridesmaid to my sister's stolen fairy tale. Let me back up. My name is Riley, and until recently, I was supposed to be the one walking down an aisle in a white dress. 2 weeks before my wedding, 2 weeks, my sister Carmen decided she was madly in love with my fiancé Marcus. Not attracted to him. Not confused about her feelings. Madly in love. Like this was some Nicholas Sparks crap and not the calculated destruction of my entire life. The worst part? Everyone acted like I was the problem for being dramatic about it. "Riley, you have to understand," my mother had said, perched on my kitchen counter like she owned the place, "sometimes these things just happen. Love doesn't follow rules. Love doesn't follow rules." Right. Because Marcus falling into Carmen's bed was just cosmic destiny, not two selfish assholes deciding my feelings didn't matter. But here's what really gets me: the disownment letter. Mom handed it to me with this smug little smile, the same one she used to give me when I was 12 and she'd catch me sneaking cookies before dinner. "It's in the past, so woman up. If you can't get over it, you're not our daughter anymore." Dad, never one to be outdone in the asshole department, had nodded sagely from his recliner. "She's always been the better daughter anyway. Goodbye." She's always been the better daughter. 28 years of being second place, and they finally said it out loud. You know what I did? I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because something inside me had just snapped clean in half, and the break was so sharp and perfect that it almost felt good. "Thank you," I told them, "for making this decision easy." They looked confused. Mom's smile faltered. Dad's beer stopped halfway to his mouth. I kept smiling as I walked them to the door. Kept smiling as I deadbolted it behind them. Kept smiling as I pulled out my phone and made the first call that would unravel everything they thought they knew about their precious better daughter. See, here's what my family never understood about me: I'm not dramatic. I'm thorough. The banging started at 6:47 a.m. this morning. Not polite knocking. Banging. Like someone was trying to break down my front door with their fists. I stumbled out of bed, my phone buzzing like an angry hornet on my nightstand. The screen showed 147 missed calls and messages, all from Mom, Dad, and Carmen. The most recent one, sent 4 minutes ago, was from my mother: "Riley, please call US back. We can explain everything. Please." All caps. Mom, who once grounded me for a week for using darn at the dinner table, was texting in all caps. The banging intensified. I could hear Dad's voice through the door, cracked and desperate: "Riley. Open the door. We need to talk. I made coffee first. Let them bang. Let them shout. Let them feel what panic tastes like for once." Through my kitchen window, I could see neighbors starting to peer out, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Patterson from across the street was openly staring, probably wondering why the Hendersons were losing their minds on my front porch at dawn. My phone rang again. Carmen this time. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Riley?" Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying for hours. "Please, you have to listen to me." "Oh, I'm listening," I said, settling into my breakfast nook with my steaming mug. "This should be good. What you're doing, it's going to destroy everything. Mom and Dad, they're oh my, Riley, you can't do this to us." "Do what?" I asked innocently, though we both knew exactly what I'd done. "I'm just sitting here having my morning coffee. Beautiful day, isn't it? Don't play dumb." She was sobbing now, ugly, desperate sounds that should have made me feel guilty. They didn't. The investigators called Dad at 5 a.m. 5 in the morning, Riley. They said there's evidence. Evidence of what? You know what. I took a long, slow sip of my coffee. French roast, perfectly bitter. "I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific, Carmen. I've been very busy these past 3 weeks." The banging on my door stopped suddenly, replaced by muffled conversation. Probably mom and dad trying to figure out their next move. Too little, too late, but still entertaining to watch. The business, Carmen whispered. You reported dad's business. Did I? The IRS is auditing him. The state labor board is investigating the job sites. They froze his accounts, Riley. All of them. I made a small sympathetic sound. That does sound stressful. And mom, gosh, what you did to mom's charity. The Sunshine Foundation for Underprivileged Youth. I interrupted. What about it? You know they weren't underprivileged. You know it was just a tax write-off. I suspected, I admitted. But I wasn't sure until I did some digging. Amazing what you can find with a little detective work. Public records, financial statements, that sort of thing. Did you know your mother was paying herself a $120,000 annual salary to run a charity that helped exactly 0 children last year? Carmen's breathing was ragged on the other end. You're destroying our family. No, I said quietly, I'm just shining a light on what was already there. She hung up. 3 weeks ago, when my parents handed me that disownment letter, I went home and cried for exactly 2 hours. Ugly, gulping sobs that left me dehydrated and empty. Then I washed my face, made a sandwich, and got to work. See, growing up as a family disappointment teaches you things. It teaches you to watch. To listen. To remember every slight, every comparison, every time they thought you weren't paying attention. And when you're an accountant, a very good accountant, you know how to follow money trails. Dad's construction company had been my first target, though target makes it sound more vindictive than it was. I prefer to think of it as finally asking the right questions. Questions like, why was he paying workers in cash? Why were there no workers' compensation claims despite multiple job site injuries? Why did his tax returns show significantly less income than his lifestyle suggested? It took me 6 days to compile everything I needed. Bank records I helped him organize last Christmas. Payroll discrepancies I'd noticed when he asked me to take a quick look at his books. Photos from family dinners showing expensive watches, jewelry, and vacation receipts scattered across his home office desk. The anonymous tip I submitted to the IRS was a work of art. 15 pages of documentation, cross-referenced and highlighted. I even included helpful sticky notes. Mom's fake charity had been easier. She'd been bragging about it for years, how she was giving back to the community and making a difference. The Sunshine Foundation for Underprivileged Youth, which existed mainly to pay for Mom's spa days and Carmen's shopping trips. I'd helped her set up the website. I'd watched her create fake testimonials. I'd even suggested the name, thinking she was just being overly optimistic about their impact. Turns out, fraud is fraud, even when you call it charity. The State Attorney General's office was very interested in my detailed report about the Foundation's activities. They were especially intrigued by the photos I'd taken at last year's charity gala, a $500 per plate dinner held at the country club, where exactly 0 underprivileged youth were present, but plenty of Mom's friends enjoyed the open bar that charity money paid for. Carmen, though. Carmen had been the masterpiece. My doorbell rang around noon. I peeked through the blinds and saw a young woman in a professional suit holding a briefcase. Not my parents this time. I opened the door cautiously. Can I help you? She smiled, the practiced smile of someone who delivers bad news for a living. Ms. Henderson? I'm Sarah Chen from the State Licensing Board. We spoke on the phone a few weeks ago. Of course, please come in. Sarah stepped inside, glancing around my living room with the keen eye of an investigator. I wanted to update you personally on the complaint you filed regarding Carmen Henderson's nursing license. We settled in my living room. Sarah opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I have to say, Ms. Henderson, your documentation was extraordinarily thorough. We've completed our investigation into your sister's practice, and the results are significant. I leaned forward, trying to look concerned rather than anticipatory. Oh? The falsified patient records you provided evidence of, the medication discrepancies, the instances of working while under the influence, we were able to corroborate everything through our investigation. My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. That must have been difficult to uncover. Actually, once we knew what to look for, it was quite clear. Your sister had been very careless about covering her tracks. Sarah's expression was grim. The hospital has terminated her employment, effective immediately. Her nursing license has been revoked pending criminal charges. Criminal charges? Those were the words I'd been hoping to hear for 3 weeks. There's something else, Sarah continued. During our investigation, we discovered that several of the medications she'd been diverting were controlled substances. Opioids, specifically. The DEA is now involved. I pressed my hand to my chest, the picture of shocked concern. Oh my gosh. Will she be arrested? I can't comment on ongoing criminal investigations, but I will say that federal drug charges carry significant penalties. After Sarah left, I sat in my living room for a long time, staring at the official documents she'd given me. Carmen's nursing license, officially revoked. A letter detailing the criminal investigation. A notice that the state would be pursuing full prosecution. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. What did you do to Carmen? I typed back, I helped her face the consequences of her actions. You're welcome. He didn't reply. Let me tell you about the night I discovered what Carmen had really been doing at the hospital. It was 2 days after she stole my fiancé, and I couldn't sleep. I'd been scrolling through social media like a masochist, looking at their new couple photos and trying not to vomit. That's when I saw her Instagram story, a video from what looked like a hospital break room, showing her and 2 other nurses sharing what were clearly prescription pills. Night shift fuel. She'd captioned it, with a bunch of party emojis. The video was only up for an hour before she deleted it, but screenshots are forever. I'd always known Carmen had a problem with pills. She'd been borrowing Mom's Percocet since high school, claiming headaches and backaches that mysteriously disappeared when she wanted to go out with friends. But seeing her casual about stealing from patients? That was a new low, even for her. So I'd done what any concerned sister would do, I'd started paying attention. I visited her at work a few times, bringing coffee and playing the supportive sister. Carmen loved showing off, so she gave me tours, introduced me to her colleagues, even showed me how they track medications. It's all computerized now, she'd explained, pulling up the system on her workstation. But there are always glitches, you know? Sometimes doses get logged wrong or patients refuse medication but it doesn't get recorded properly. She'd winked at me then, like we were sharing a joke. I'd smiled and nodded and made mental notes about every system she showed me, every glitch she mentioned, every casual admission of falsifying records. Building a case against your own sister is methodical work. You have to be patient. You have to be thorough. You have to document everything without letting emotion cloud your judgment. Lucky for me, I'd had plenty of practice being overlooked. Nobody pays attention to the boring accountant sister, especially when the fun nurse sister is around to steal the spotlight. Carmen never noticed me photographing medication logs during my visits. She never questioned why I was suddenly so interested in her work stories. She never wondered why I always seemed to show up during her shifts, right around the times when her pupils were pinpoints and her words were just slightly too loose. She was too busy planning her stolen wedding to notice that her life was unraveling around her. My parents showed up again around dinner time, but this time they weren't alone. Carmen was with them, and she looked like crap. Her hair was greasy, her nursing scrubs were wrinkled like she'd slept in them, and her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion. I watched them through my peephole for a full minute before deciding to let them in. This was too good to miss. Riley, Mom started the second I opened the door, we need to talk. Actually, I said, stepping aside to let them enter, I think we're past talking. But please, come in. They filed into my living room like defendants entering a courtroom. Dad's hands were shaking, stress, probably, or maybe just the realization that 30 years of tax fraud was finally catching up with him. Mom kept wringing her hands and glancing at Carmen, who had collapsed into my armchair like her bones had turned to jelly. You have to stop this, Dad said without preamble. Whatever you think you're accomplishing. I'm not accomplishing anything, I interrupted. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. Isn't that what you always taught me? That honesty was the most important thing? Mom flinched. This isn't honesty, it's revenge. Can't it be both? Carmen finally looked up at me, and I was startled by how hollow her eyes looked. They arrested me this morning. I heard. How was it? She stared at me like I'd slapped her. How was it? Riley, they put me in handcuffs. In front of everyone at the hospital. My co-workers, my patients, everyone saw me get led away like a common criminal. Well, I said reasonably, weren't you? The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. What do you want? He asked. Money? An apology? What will it take to make this stop? I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd called Carmen the better daughter. The man who'd signed a legal document disowning me because I wouldn't celebrate my sister stealing my fiancé. The man who was now begging me to save him from the consequences of his own choices. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "I wanted you to choose me. Just once. But you made it very clear that was never going to happen." "Riley, no." My voice was sharper than I intended. "You don't get to come here now and act like this is fixable. You handed me a disownment letter, Dad. You told me I wasn't your daughter anymore because I wouldn't pretend to be happy about Carmen's betrayal. We were emotional, you were honest, I cut him off. For once in your lives, you were completely honest about how you felt about me. And now I'm being honest about how I feel about you." Mom was crying now, messy tears that she wasn't bothering to wipe away. "Please, honey. We're your family." "No," I said quietly, "you're not. You made that very clear 3 weeks ago." Carmen struggled to sit up straighter in the chair. "The federal charges," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're saying I could get 15 years. "That does seem like a long time," I agreed. "Riley." She was sobbing now, the same ugly, desperate sounds from our phone call this morning. "I'm scared." For just a moment, just a heartbeat, I felt something crack inside my chest. She looked so young, so broken, sitting there in my living room crying. This was my little sister, the girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who I protected from playground bullies and helped with homework. But then I remembered the wedding dress hanging in my closet. The deposits I'd lost. The humiliation of having to cancel everything because my sister decided she wanted my life more than her own. I remembered Marcus telling me he was sorry, but he couldn't fight true love. I remembered my parents choosing her. Again. "You should have thought of that," I said, "before you decided my feelings didn't matter." They left around 9 p.m., defeated and desperate and finally understanding that I wasn't going to save them. After they were gone, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back deck, looking up at the stars. My phone buzzed with text messages throughout the evening. Friends who'd heard about Carmen's arrest. Co-workers asking if I was okay. My cousin Jake, who'd always been the family truth teller, texting, "Oh my, Riley. I knew Carmen was a mess, but this is next level. You okay?" I was okay. Better than okay, actually. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had control over something. Not just control, power. The power to make people face consequences. The power to demand honesty. The power to refuse to be treated like I didn't matter. It was intoxicating. Around midnight, Marcus called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Riley." His voice was hollow, exhausted. "Carmen's been arrested." I heard. "The things they're saying she did, stealing drugs, falsifying records, what about them? Is it true?" I took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. "What do you think, Marcus?" "I think." He was quiet for a long time. "I think I never really knew her." "No," I said, "you never really knew me." He was crying now, and the sound should have satisfied me more than it did. "I messed up, didn't I? Riley, I messed up so bad." "Yes, you did. Is there any way we can fix this?" I almost laughed. "Fix what, exactly? The fact that you fell in love with my sister 2 weeks before our wedding? The fact that you chose her over me? Or the fact that you're only calling now because you realize she's not who you thought she was?" I was confused. "No, you were selfish. There's a difference." "Riley, please. I love you." "No," I said firmly, "you don't. If you loved me, you never would have done what you did. You loved the idea of me, maybe. You loved having someone stable and reliable who would take care of you. But you didn't love me enough to fight for me when Carmen decided she wanted you." He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. "I'm sorry," he whispered finally. "I know," I said, and hung up. The house felt different after that call. Emptier, maybe, but also cleaner. Like I'd finally aired out rooms that had been closed up too long. I spent the rest of the night going through old photo albums, looking at pictures of family vacations and holidays and birthdays. Carmen always front and center, always the focus. Me always slightly to the side, smiling dutifully, playing my role as the responsible older sister. In every single photo, I looked like I was waiting for something. Waiting to be noticed. Waiting to be chosen. Waiting for my turn to matter. Well, I was done waiting. The next morning brought a new development. I was making breakfast when my doorbell rang. This time it was a man in an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my car. "Ms. Henderson? I'm David Reeves, attorney for your parents and sister." I was hoping we could talk. I let him in, curious about what angle they were trying now. My clients are prepared to make this right, he said without preamble, settling onto my couch and pulling documents from his briefcase. Full restitution for any damages, public apologies, whatever you need to make this go away. Make what go away? The complaints. The investigations. The criminal charges. He spread the papers across my coffee table like he was dealing cards. These charges against your sister, they could ruin her life. Your parents could lose everything they've worked for. I picked up one of the documents. A settlement agreement, offering me $50,000 to recant my statements to the various agencies I'd contacted. You want me to lie, I said. I want you to consider the consequences of your actions. Your sister could go to prison, Miss Henderson. Your parents could lose their home. Is that really what you want? I set the paper down and looked at him. Mr. Reeves, do you have siblings? Yes, a brother. Has your brother ever stolen something from you? Something important? He shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Henderson, has your brother ever taken the person you were planning to marry? 2 weeks before your wedding? This isn't. Have your parents ever handed you a legal document disowning you because you were upset about your brother's betrayal? David Reeves closed his briefcase with a sharp click. I can see we're not going to reach an agreement today. No, I said, walking him to the door, we're not. After he left, I called my own lawyer. Yes, I had one now. Funny how having powerful enemies makes you more cautious about these things. Riley, Janet Martinez said when I explained about the settlement offer, you need to be very careful here. If they're offering money to make you recant, it means they think you have them dead to rights. I do have them dead to rights. Good. Don't take their money. Don't sign anything. And don't talk to any more of their lawyers without me present. What happens next? Next? Janet laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. Next, they probably try to discredit you. Make you look vindictive or unstable. Standard defense tactics when they can't attack the evidence. Let them try. She was right, of course. The character assassination started that afternoon. First, it was Carmen posting on social media about her mental health struggles and how she was seeking treatment for her addiction issues. The posts were carefully crafted to make her look like a victim of disease rather than someone who'd made a series of selfish choices. Then came the flying monkeys, family friends and distant relatives who suddenly felt compelled to reach out to me about forgiveness and family healing. People who'd never given a crap about me before were now very concerned about my vindictive behavior and destructive choices. My Aunt Linda called me 3 times in one day, each conversation more aggressive than the last. Riley, honey, this has gone far enough, she said during the final call. Carmen made a mistake, but you're destroying her life. She's family. She chose not to be my family when she stole my fiancé, I replied. That's not, marriage is an ownership, Riley. Sometimes people fall in love. And sometimes people face consequences for their actions. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. I hung up and blocked her number. The worst part was Marcus. He'd started showing up at my work, waiting in the parking lot like some kind of stalker. The first time, I'd ignored him. The second time, I'd called security. The third time, I'd marched right up to his car and knocked on the window. What do you want? I asked when he rolled it down. I want to talk to you. About Carmen, about us, about... There is no us, I interrupted. There hasn't been an us since the moment you decided you wanted her more. I made a mistake. No, Marcus. You made a choice. And now you're dealing with the consequences of that choice. Just like Carmen is dealing with the consequences of hers. She's falling apart, Riley. The arrest, the charges, losing her license, she can barely get out of bed. For a moment, I felt that familiar tug of guilt. The old Riley, the peacekeeper Riley, the Riley who always put everyone else's feelings first, wanted to comfort him. Wanted to tell him it would be okay. But the new Riley, the Riley who'd been legally disowned by her own parents, had different priorities. Then she should have thought of that before she decided to steal controlled substances from cancer patients, I said. And before she decided to steal my fiancé. Oh my, Riley. When did you become so cold? I leaned down so I was eye level with him through the car window. I became cold the day my family threw me away like garbage. I became cold the day I realized that no one was ever going to choose me, so I had to choose myself. I straightened up and started walking away. Riley, wait. Don't follow me to my work again, Marcus, I called over my shoulder. Next time, I'm calling the police. The criminal trial started 6 weeks later. By then, the local news had picked up the story, not because they cared about my family drama, but because a nurse stealing drugs from a hospital is always good for ratings. Local nurse charged with federal drug trafficking ran the lead story on Channel 7 News. They used Carmen's hospital ID photo, the one where she was smiling and looked professional and trustworthy. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't attend the trial. I'd given my depositions, provided my evidence, and answered every question the prosecutors had asked. My job was done. But I did read the newspaper coverage, and I did watch the evening news reports. Carmen looked terrible, thin and pale and broken, nothing like the confident woman who'd stolen my fiancé 8 weeks earlier. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution had security footage of Carmen accessing the medication dispensary at unusual hours. They had computer records showing the discrepancies between what she'd logged and what she'd actually given patients. They had testimony from patients who'd complained about inadequate pain management, not knowing their medications were being diverted. Most damning of all, they had the Instagram video I'd screenshotted, the one showing Carmen and her co-workers sharing prescription pills during their night shift. Her defense attorney tried to paint her as a victim of addiction, someone who needed treatment rather than punishment. He talked about the stress of working in healthcare, about how easy it was for dedicated professionals to lose their way. The jury didn't buy it. Carmen was convicted on 4 federal charges: theft of controlled substances, distribution of controlled substances, falsification of medical records, and conspiracy to commit drug trafficking. The last charge came from the fact that she'd been sharing stolen medications with her coworkers. She was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Mom collapsed in the courtroom when they read the verdict. Dad just sat there, staring straight ahead like he couldn't process what was happening. I watched the coverage from my living room, eating takeout Chinese food and feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not sadness. Just a strange sense of completion, like I'd finally finished a puzzle I'd been working on for years. Dad's trial came next, 3 months later. Tax evasion, fraud, failure to pay workers' compensation, violation of labor laws, the list was extensive. His lawyer tried to argue that he was a small business owner who'd made honest mistakes, but the evidence I'd provided painted a different picture. 30 years of systematically cheating the system. 30 years of exploiting workers who couldn't afford to fight back. 30 years of living a lifestyle funded by fraud and theft. He got 5 years and full restitution to the IRS, which meant selling the house, the vacation property, and pretty much everything else he owned. Mom's charity fraud trial was almost anticlimactic by comparison. She pled guilty to avoid jail time and agreed to pay back the $800,000 she'd stolen over the years, plus penalties. She lost the house anyway. Dad's restitution requirements meant they had to liquidate everything. The last I heard, they were living in a 1-bedroom apartment across town, surviving on Social Security and whatever part-time work Mom could find. Marcus never went to trial, because there was nothing to charge him with. You can't prosecute someone for being a selfish asshole, unfortunately. But he did lose his job, something about character concerns from his employer, and I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved back in with his parents. Poetic justice, really. 1 year later, I was living in a different city, working for a different firm and dating a man named Thomas who thought I was brave rather than vindictive. You stood up for yourself, he'd said when I told him the whole story. You refused to let them treat you like you didn't matter. Some people think I went too far. Some people think women should accept being treated badly for the sake of family peace, he replied. Those people are wrong. Thomas understood something that my family never had, that forgiveness without consequences isn't forgiveness, it's enabling. I still got messages occasionally. Birthday cards from cousins who wanted to maintain relationships. Christmas texts from old friends who thought enough time had passed for us all to move on. I never responded to any of them. The thing about burning bridges is that sometimes the bridge needed to be burned. Sometimes the only way to stop people from walking all over you is to make it impossible for them to reach you in the first place. Carmen would be eligible for parole in 6 years. Dad would be out in 3 with good behavior. Mom was already free, technically, though I doubted she'd ever really recover from the public humiliation of having her fraud exposed. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if I'd gone too far. If there had been another way to handle things. If I could have found justice without destroying my entire family. But then I'd remember the disownment letter, still sitting in my filing cabinet. I'd remember Dad telling me Carmen was the better daughter. I'd remember Mom's smug smile when she handed me that piece of paper. And I'd remember that they'd made their choice long before I made mine. The package arrived on a Tuesday, exactly 13 months after the disownment letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside was a letter from Carmen, written on prison stationery. Riley, I know you probably won't read this, but I had to try. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened, and I want you to know that I understand now. Not just understand, I get it. You were right about everything. I was selfish. I was cruel. I took something that wasn't mine because I wanted it, and I never thought about how it would hurt you. I convinced myself that it was love, that it was fate, that it was meant to be. But really, I just wanted what you had because you had it. I've always been jealous of you, Ree. You were smarter, more responsible, more together. Everyone always said I was the pretty one, the fun one, but you were the one people could count on. You were the one who had her crap figured out. And instead of trying to build my own life, I decided to take yours. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I can't undo what I did. But I am sorry. I'm sorry for stealing Marcus. I'm sorry for the wedding. I'm sorry for everything that came after. But mostly, I'm sorry it took prison for me to realize that you were never the problem. We were. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know that you were right to protect yourself from us. We never deserved you. Carmen. I read the letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold in front of me. Part of me, a small, stubborn part that still remembered the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, wanted to write back. Wanted to offer some kind of absolution, some path back to being sisters. But forgiveness isn't the same thing as reconciliation. And understanding why someone hurt you doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my filing cabinet, right next to the disownment papers. Then I got ready for work, because Thomas and I had dinner plans, and I had a life to live that had nothing to do with a family that had thrown me away. The better daughter, it turned out, was the one who knew her own worth. And some bridges are meant to burn. 2 years after Carmen's letter, I was standing in line at a coffee shop in my new city when I heard a voice that made my blood freeze. Riley? Oh my gosh, Riley Henderson? I turned around and there she was, Jessica Moreau, Carmen's best friend from nursing school. The same Jessica who'd been Carmen's maid of honor at the wedding that should have been mine. The same Jessica who'd posted Instagram stories from their bachelorette party, the one I wasn't invited to because I was being dramatic. Jessica, I said neutrally, hoping she'd take the hint and move along. She didn't. Of course she didn't. I can't believe it's you. What are the odds? She was practically bouncing with excitement, the kind of toxic enthusiasm that makes you want to hide in a bathroom stall. I was just thinking about you the other day. How are you doing? You look amazing. I'm fine, thanks. I heard about everything that happened with your family, so crazy, right? I mean, who could have predicted all that drama? Drama. She called the systematic destruction of my life drama. It wasn't drama, Jessica. It was consequences. Her smile faltered slightly, but she pressed on. Right, well, anyway, I have some news I think you'll want to hear. About Carmen. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to order my coffee and leave and pretend this conversation never happened. But something in Jessica's voice, a particular brand of malicious excitement, made me pause. What about Carmen? She's out. My coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor and sending hot liquid splashing across my shoes. What? She got out early. Good behavior, overcrowding, some kind of compassionate release program. She's been out for 3 months now. 3 months. Carmen had been free for 3 months, and I had no idea. She's doing really well, Jessica continued, apparently oblivious to the fact that I was having what might charitably be called a panic attack. Living in a halfway house, working at a clinic. She's really turned her life around. A clinic? My voice sounded strange, distant. Yeah, some kind of addiction counseling center. She can't be a nurse anymore, obviously, but she's helping other people with their problems. It's really beautiful, actually. Like she's using her experience to help others. Beautiful. Carmen stealing drugs from cancer patients and then getting to rebrand herself as a reformed addict helping others was beautiful. She asks about you sometimes, Jessica added, leaning in conspiratorially. Wonders how you're doing, if you're happy. I think she'd really like to talk to you. No. Oh, come on, Riley. It's been years. Don't you think? No, I repeated, more firmly this time. I don't think anything. I need to go. I left the coffee shop without ordering, stepping carefully around the broken ceramic and spilled coffee that the barista was already cleaning up. Jessica called after me, something about healing and forgiveness and second chances, but I didn't stop walking until I reached my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. That night, I did something I hadn't done in over 2 years. I Googled my sister. There she was, in a local newspaper article about the addiction counseling center where she worked. Former nurse uses personal experience to help others battle addiction, read the headline. The photo showed her sitting in what looked like a group therapy circle, smiling warmly at someone off camera. She looked different. Older, thinner, but also somehow more substantial. Like she'd grown into herself in a way she never had before. The article talked about her journey through addiction and recovery, her commitment to making amends for past mistakes, her passion for helping others avoid the pitfalls that nearly destroyed her life. Not one mention of the patients she'd stolen from. Not one mention of the fiancé she'd stolen. The article painted her as a victim of circumstance who'd found redemption through helping others. It was a masterful rebranding, really. I had to admire the audacity of it. I kept scrolling, diving deeper into the rabbit hole of her new life. There were more articles, a few local TV interviews, even a blog she'd started about addiction recovery. In every piece, she was thoughtful, articulate, and completely committed to her role as the reformed addict who'd found her calling. And in every single one, she looked happy. That was the part that got to me. After everything, the arrest, the trial, the prison sentence, she looked genuinely, radiantly happy in a way she never had when we were growing up. I slammed my laptop shut and went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was Carmen, free and happy and helping people, while I was lying awake at 2 a.m. feeling like my carefully constructed new life was built on quicksand. Thomas found me on the couch the next morning, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at my phone. "Rough night?" he asked, settling down beside me with 2 cups of coffee. "Carmen's out of prison." He was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Thomas was good at that, giving me space to feel things without immediately trying to fix them. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know." It was honest, at least. "Angry? Scared? Confused? All of the above?" "Scared of what?" That was the question, wasn't it? What exactly was I afraid of? "I guess. I'm afraid she's going to try to contact me. I'm afraid my parents are going to start the whole family healing campaign again. I'm afraid people are going to expect me to forgive her now that she's supposedly changed. And I'm afraid that maybe I should." Thomas set down his coffee and looked at me carefully. "Should what?" "Forgive her. Move on. Be the bigger person." I laughed, but it sounded bitter even to my ears. Everyone loves a redemption story, right? The bad sister who found God in prison and the good sister who learns to forgive. Very Hallmark movie. "Riley." His voice was gentle but firm. "You don't owe anyone forgiveness. Not Carmen, not your parents, not society, not anyone. Forgiveness is a gift, not a debt. But what if she really has changed? What if she's actually sorry? Then that's good for her. But it doesn't change what she did to you. It doesn't erase the hurt she caused. And it doesn't mean you have to let her back into your life." I leaned against him, grateful for his steadiness. "I feel like a terrible person for not wanting to give her a second chance." "You're not terrible. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. But it doesn't end there." A week later, I came home from work to find a letter in my mailbox. No return address again, but this time the handwriting was different. Older, shakier. It was from my father. "Riley, I know I have no right to contact you after everything that happened, but I had to try. Carmen got out 3 months ago. She's doing well, working, helping people, trying to make amends for what she did. She's changed, Riley. Really changed. Your mother and I, we're trying to change too. We've been going to therapy, talking about the mistakes we made, the ways we failed you. We know now that we were wrong to choose Carmen over you. We were wrong to make you feel like you didn't matter. We were wrong about everything. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know we can't undo the hurt we caused. But we want to try to make things right. We want to be a family again. Carmen wants to see you. Not to ask for forgiveness, she knows she doesn't deserve that. But to apologize. To try to explain. To show you who she's become. We all want that chance, Riley. The chance to prove that we're not the same people who hurt you. We're having dinner at Romano's on Sunday at 6 p.m. Table for 4, just in case. We'll understand if you don't come, but we'll be there anyway. Hoping. Love, Dad. P.S. Your mother wanted me to tell you that she kept your room exactly the same. She says she always hoped you'd come home. I read the letter 3 times, then called in sick to work and spent the day walking around the city trying to process what I was feeling. They wanted to see me. After 3 years of silence, of building my life without them, they wanted me back. Part of me, the little girl who used to wait by the window for Dad to come home from work, who used to help Mom bake cookies for Carmen's school events even though no one ever asked what I wanted to bring, was desperate to go to that dinner. But the adult woman who'd been legally disowned, who'd been called a disappointment, who'd been thrown away like garbage when she refused to celebrate her own betrayal, that woman knew better. Sunday came and went. I didn't go to Romano's. Instead, I cooked dinner for Thomas and me, and we watched movies on the couch like it was any other night. He didn't ask if I'd considered going, didn't push me to make any particular choice. He just held my hand and let me be wherever I needed to be emotionally. But Monday morning brought another development I wasn't prepared for. Carmen was standing outside my office building when I arrived for work. She looked exactly like she had in the newspaper photos, older, more grounded, genuinely at peace in a way that was almost unsettling. She was wearing simple clothes, no makeup, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked like someone who'd found herself, which made me irrationally angry. "Hi, Riley." I stopped walking, my hand frozen on the door handle. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you." "To talk." "I don't want to talk to you." "I know. But I need to try anyway." She stepped closer, and I instinctively stepped back. Even transformed, even supposedly redeemed, she was still the person who'd stolen my life. "I read your letter," I said, surprising myself. "The one you sent from prison." "I wasn't sure you had." "I read it. That doesn't mean I forgive you." "I know." She nodded, like she'd expected this response. "I don't expect forgiveness, Riley. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I understand now. What I did, what we all did to you, it was unforgivable. If it's unforgivable, why are you here?" "Because I need to try to make amends anyway. Not for you, for me. Part of recovery is acknowledging the harm you've caused and trying to repair it, even when repair is impossible." Part of recovery. She was reciting steps from some program, reducing my pain to a checkbox on her redemption journey. "This isn't about me at all, is it?" I realized. "This is about you feeling better about yourself. This is about completing your program or whatever." Her face flushed, and for a moment she looked like the old Carmen, defensive, caught. "That's not." "Yes, it is. You want to apologize to me so you can move on with your new life guilt-free. You want me to absolve you so you can stop carrying around the weight of what you did." "Riley, well, I'm not going to do it." My voice was getting louder, and I didn't care who heard. "I'm not going to be part of your recovery story. I'm not going to play the forgiving sister so you can have your happy ending." People were starting to stare as they walked past us into the building. Carmen looked around nervously, but I was past caring about making a scene. "You destroyed my life," I continued. "You stole my fiancé, you destroyed my relationship with my parents, you forced me to become someone I never wanted to be just to survive what you did to me. And now you want to show up here and make it all better with an apology?" "I don't want to make it better," she said quietly. "I know it can't be better. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to you, and I'm sorry. Your sorry doesn't mean anything to me." She nodded, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "I know." "Good. Then we're done here." I turned toward the building entrance, but her voice stopped me. "I dream about you sometimes." I turned back to spite myself. "I dream that we're kids again, and you're reading to me during a thunderstorm. Or we're baking cookies with Mom, and you're letting me lick the spoon even though it's your turn." She was crying now, but quietly, like she was trying not to let it show. "I dream about who we used to be before I ruined everything." For just a moment, I felt that familiar tug of sympathy. But then I remembered the wedding dress hanging in my closet for 3 months after she stole my fiancé. I remembered the humiliation, the shame, the loneliness of rebuilding my life from scratch. "Those dreams aren't real, Carmen. We were never really sisters, not the way you're remembering it. I was always second place to you, always the afterthought. The only difference now is that I'm not pretending otherwise anymore." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Goodbye, Carmen." This time, she didn't try to stop me. That evening, Thomas found me sitting on our back deck with a glass of wine, staring at the sunset. "How was work?" he asked, settling into the chair beside me. Carmen showed up. He was quiet for a moment. "How do you feel?" "Empty," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. I thought I'd feel angry or satisfied or something. But I just feel empty. Maybe that's healing too. Is it? Maybe. Or maybe it's just the end of a very long story. I considered that. The end of a story. Carmen free and working on her recovery. My parents trying to rebuild their lives. Marcus presumably moved on with someone new. And me, sitting on my deck with a man who loved me, in a city where no one knew my history, living a life I'd built entirely for myself. I think, I said slowly, I'm ready to write a different story now. What kind of story? I took a sip of wine and watched the sun disappear behind the horizon. One where I'm not defined by what other people did to me. One where I get to be happy without needing revenge or justice or apologies from people who hurt me. That sounds like a good story. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. I think it will be. The better daughter, it turned out, was the one who knew when the war was over. And some stories are meant to end.